Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I have a few announcements to make. Next week we have, on October 13th, Seth Morris. He's the president of Carol Hockman Design Group. How many of you are familiar with the name Carol Hockman? Well, you ought to go online and look her up. She's one of the most talented, creative, intimate apparel designers. She's designed for Dior. Welcome. Come to the lower amphitheater. And she now is Carol Design, the design group. So they are designing for Oscar de la Renta, intimate apparel, Betsy Johnson, intimate apparel. And by the way, the woman who's in charge is going to invite our class, only the registered students, she'll take you on a tour of the Betsy Johnson showroom, which is a treat. Okay, I'll let you know which day, and you'll sign up for it at room A639. I was hoping she'd call me before I came down here. And then they also do Jockey and Ralph Lauren, Chaps, etc. So you're going to meet someone who is really in the fashion design on a very creative level. I've spoken to him, and he's wonderful. And I hope that you too will benefit from this. That's the whole idea of this course. And Seth Morris has been in the industry as president of Valmode, which is one of the big companies. And I already told you, Oscar de la Renta, etc. He's a Brown University man. And he was a Ivy League football player. You'll see, big husky man. All right, today we have one of the most unusually gifted, knowledgeable representatives of our fashion business, Mr. Joseph Barrato. And I will give you a little background. Joseph J. Barrato is the founder and president of Joseph J. Barrato Associates. He just created a luxury consulting firm, and he draws on an impressive career in fashion, highlighted with an exceptional taste level and an unmistakable eye for design. His extensive background, vast experience, and key personal relationships with the apparel and retail industry leaders have provided him with an in-depth and intuitive understanding. I hope you're making notes, because this will be one of the, you know, we have the multiple choice test at the end of the semester, so keep making notes of everything I tell you. Joe Barrato is considered by many as one of the most dynamic, respected executives. He's a seasoned veteran who has held top-level positions in retailing and manufacturing, such as Brioni, which is an Italian Roman-based clothing company, and it's known as the Tailor of Kings. When I lived in Rome, that's what they used to say. And Joe Barrato was the CEO and president of this company, and he was responsible for working as a wardrobe consultant for the film and stage industry, but he played a large role in the creation of Pierce Brosnan. How many of you know Pierce Brosnan? Okay, James Bond, right? While he was at Brioni, they did all the clothes, and Mr. Barrato was the one who supervised and designed, and he was magnificent in the Brioni suits. the James Bond movies. He's also much sought after as a lecturer for design schools such as ours and Parsons. He's conducted marketing classes at the Harvard Business School. Barrato's career highlights include his pivotal role as the founding president of the prestigious Designers Collective, as well as being a recipient of the 1999 Distinguished Alumni Award from FIT, because Mr. Barrato attended FIT. So you see that our students rise to the top when they graduate. He was also named, had the honor of being named to Esquire magazine as one of the 10 best dressed men in fashion, you will see. And DNR cited Barrato several times as one of the Power 100, the trade's weekly list of the 100 most powerful people in menswear. And I think I won't say any more because I want Mr. Barrato to come up and meet you all. Thank you. And to add to that, Mr. Barrato is one of the family at FIT, besides being a graduate of this school and being honored. He never says no, no matter how busy he is, to come here and give of his knowledge and his intuitive feelings about fashion to help you. I won't say any more. I'm talking too much, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Alice. It's always a pleasure to be here. This is my 15th year lecturing. Can you believe it? I can't. But anyway, I'm going to just organize my notes here. I had a bit of a panic attack yesterday. I have an apartment in Manhattan, and I live in Westport, Connecticut. And unfortunately, I had recently severed my Achilles, so I've been confined to the Westport house for the last, I guess 10, 12 weeks, being in a wheelchair 5 of those weeks. So I lost my notes, the ones that I usually use to lecture at FIT. So last night I was doing my homework up until about midnight. So I put something together that I think will be reasonable for you all to relate to, and hopefully I'll be able to give you some inspiration based on my career. This September marked my 50th year in the fashion business, 5-0. And to me, they were 50 magical years, and they continue, obviously, in my new position as a consultant. But when I reflect back, I think that I never worked a day in my life because how much I love this business and the passion I have for it. And when Professor Alice would ask me to be here to speak to you, I was always honored and privileged. And I feel that that's a responsibility and certainly a commitment to you all, because I sat where you sat one day many, many years ago. FIT molded me for my career. Obviously, I think it's a fabulous school. Being rewarded one of their highest awards is just incomprehensible to me, because as I said one day, I was just like you all, sitting there learning from my professors at FIT. So FIT prepared me to be motivated, develop my career pattern, my goals, my passion, which I think I had before, but it certainly was inspired by going to this school. So what I would like to do is try to tell you where it all started from. I'm from a middle-class family, New York City, native, born and raised a few blocks from here, 19th Street and 3rd Avenue. I was exposed to fashion as a young child by the movies and also by the relatives that I was exposed to as a young boy, mostly Italian immigrants. And someone I'm working with on a book challenged me with the question. They said to me, your taste level, how did you acquire it? What made you be the dresser that you are, winning all these awards and being considered one of the best dressed in the industry? And as I said before, I'm from a middle-class family, New York City. I don't have any royalty heritage in my background. It was the movies, as I said, and the people that I was exposed to. And if I may read to you how I answer that question, just to give you an idea of what I was exposed to as a young person and what I developed from that. So I said, I'm often questioned about my taste level and why I dress the way I do. My best answer is that my personal style is one part natural and one part inspiration. It all goes back to my roots in Italy. While a second generation Italian, I have always been influenced by the old country traditions. Italian men, particularly immigrant Italian men, influenced and inspired me in the way they dressed. Perhaps it was due to the oppression and prejudice that the clothes they wore became their personal statement of independence, their way of holding on to their manhood. Even though they were poor, these men always maintained a sense of pride. They strived to be proper and elegant in the way they dressed, always adding the right details that reflected their care and passion for looking good. Their clothes created a sense of masculinity, and while they may have been common workers, no one would have ever guessed it by their manner of dress. So just think about me as a young boy observing all of this and then reflecting almost 50 years later, why? And I went back to the archives of my pictures, family pictures, and I discovered that this apparently was very obvious to me, but I didn't know then. But it did influence me. So in addition, the other thing you have to understand is that there really was a lot of prejudice in those days when the immigrants came over, as we all experience, obviously, because we're a nation of many different countries. The Italians went through it, and almost every other heritage went through it. But this prejudice followed me throughout my entire career. Once at Brooks Brothers, I was a very young, prominent, right after I graduated from FIT, they saw a great future for me, but they wanted me to change my name from Barrato to Barrett. And I said, no, I just refused to do that. And I was pretty intimidated, but I believed in my principles. So, you know, this prejudice thing, my real name is Barrato. That's my real name. But my illiterate grandfather, who came here in 1904, his name was changed by the authorities to make it sound easier for them to pronounce and write. He never challenged them. So, you know, this was an ongoing thing. But the most important thing is understanding the influence of this prejudice influenced me subconsciously as well. So sometimes we tend to withdraw, and it helps transcend the solitude of what we feel. Artistic originality takes over, creating great passion and will, which pushes us to do and overcome and rise above any prejudice or insecurity felt over the years. Therefore, dressing well became one of the first ways I could define myself. And as I said, the movies also influenced me to become the dresser I am today. And ironically, I still follow those wonderful movies on Turner Broadcasting. And I was just recently honored. Unfortunately, I was doing a consulting job in Toronto, but Robert Wagner, I don't know if any of you know the famous actor. Do you know who I'm referring to? Well, he transcends old Hollywood and new. And he just recently wrote a book about his career. And he called me to invite me to his book opening party here in New York City, but I couldn't go. As I said, I was in Toronto. And I've personally dressed Robert, RJ is what we call him, for the last 15 years. And here again, I'm, this kid from New York City that was an FIT student a long, long time ago. So that basically was how it all started. From here, I went to work for a company, as I mentioned before, called Brooks Brothers. And it was an amazing experience for me, just an amazing experience. Working at Brooks Brothers, I became aware of a very unique person at the time who was a tie salesman. His name is Ralph Lauren. This is over 50 years ago. Well, 50 years ago, September. And Ralph Lauren was the salesman at Brooks Brothers. I was the assistant to the buyer. And Ralph and I immediately connected. We just connected. His vision and what he spoke about was something that made my heart beat in those days. I'll get back to that a little later. But anyway, at Brooks Brothers, I really learned a lot about dressing. Some of the people that I was exposed to was just amazing. I was working in a custom department at the time. I was just a clerk until I graduated up to assistant buyer. And I met the most fabulous people certainly out of my reality. Rockefellers, the DuPonts, I mean, you name it, they were there all having their suits custom made. So that was the beginning of an amazing passion that started to develop and love for this business. From there, I met, as I told you, I met this guy, Ralph Lauren, and the day he opened up his business, don't forget we maintained friendship for the period of 6 years until he opened up his own business. And he called me one day and he said, I've got the name. He told me the name, Polo. I said, perfect, because I knew what his vision was. And then he said to me, I'd like you to join me. And I became his third employee. That was 40 years ago. He just celebrated his 40th year in business. So needless to say, the Ralph Lauren experience was just amazing. It was a mere 7 or 8 years that I was there, but I was there from the beginning when the pulse was beating, not so fast at the time, but it was really gaining speed. And to sense all of that was just remarkable. Then from there, I went into my own business. I had 2 retail stores, and one in Wall Street and one in Manhasset. And I was married. I think I had 3 children. I had 5 children altogether, but I had 3 at the time, and I put my life savings into that business. And unfortunately, it failed. Not because of my ability to manage it properly, but we had the first oil crisis ever in America back in those days, and we were just not financially capable of riding the storm. So it failed, and I learned a lesson that failure is the opportunity to begin again, but more intelligently. That was the lesson I learned from failing in my own business. And then Ralph summoned me back to work for him, running a division called Chaps, which was incredibly successful. But I just wasn't feeling comfortable with my life at the time. I was really longing for the retail part of the business again. So Bergdorf Goodman offered me a position as vice president in charge of their men's luggage, and at the time they had a little children's department. And that's where my heart was really beating. I loved the retail business, and I loved the experience of working for Bergdorf Goodman. And at that point, Bergdorf was 1 store, and I kept getting offers from Bloomingdale's. That was the hot store in those days. They wanted me to work there, but I was a little concerned because I didn't want to make that kind of leap. You know, little by little, I was setting a course for my future. Everything was deliberately done so that I could go to the next step in my career. So I went to a store called Garfinkel's in Washington, D.C., and that again proved to be an outstanding experience because it was the first time in my career I was removed from New York City and the spirit of New York City. It was sort of like getting off the merry-go-round and just kind of relaxing for 2 years. As I said, it was a great experience. I did very, very well. And the reason I went to Garfinkel's was that I was offered, believe it or not, the opportunity to come back and become president of Brooks Brothers. Can you imagine that? That would be like coming back to FIT and becoming the president of FIT. So I said it was worth the gamble, and I moved the family to Washington, D.C. Unfortunately, Garfinkel's went through a very difficult period, and they were bought out by a Canadian company who almost put them into bankruptcy. And that's when I decided to come back to New York and got myself a job at a company called Brioni. It was a very small company doing very little volume, and today it's quite a visible company, known as the best luxury menswear company in the world. I was there, and I basically directed this entire success of this company. One of the reasons that I felt I was good at that job is that I'm an ex-retailer. So I had a great balance. I understood the retail world. I understood the manufacturing world. And it enabled me as a manufacturer to speak to the retailer in their language. So I was able to really develop this amazing business. And throughout my career, I've been basically known as a great startup person, turnaround person. There have been other situations where I've been able to do that, but I just want to dwell on some of the important things. And Brioni, under my leadership, became a $55 million wholesale business from, I think I took it over at $2 million. And that was during a period when you really had to be creative to take a business to that position, particularly when you didn't have the proper resources. For example, no advertising. So I did a lot of marketing with other companies. I can get into that a little later, but I did everything I could creatively to get this ship on a right course and put it to the position it became. So it was an amazing 20 years, And in that period, obviously, I developed a reputation, and it was not about me. It was about this guy from FIT who had this amazing passion. That's what it was all about. That was my success. So anyway, after 20 years working for Brioni, I was grooming my son to take over my position someday, and he was ready, so I resigned to become a consultant. But I had a little bit of an interruption. A guy by the name of Ralph Lauren called me up, and he said, I hear you're retiring? And I said, yes. He says, no, you're not. Yeah, Ralph still has that kind of control. I said, what do you mean I'm not? He says, you're coming back here. I want you here, you belong here, and I want you to retire here. So I went back for 2 years as president of his Purple Label and Black Label divisions. And in the 2 years that I was there, I made my mark, and I realized at that point I had enough. I just wanted to kind of do my thing in my own way and not work as hard. I mean, I still have the passion, but I wanted to use it another way. So today, I'm a consultant. And what that means, basically, there's a lot of consultants out there, but what I do is anything I want to do that I'm allowed to do. For example, as you heard before, I love the retail business. So I'm associated with the finest luxury retail store in Canada called Holt Renfrew. They're the Neiman Marcus of Canada. And what I'm doing is helping them reposition their menswear departments. And it's exciting. It gets me involved in strategic planning, which is all part of what I've done in my career. Brand positioning and development, that means being a merchant. product merchandising, the balance, and again, being a merchant of stock that's put into the store, business management and organization, in some cases, image building, which is something they desperately need, and communication training. There's a lot of sales associates out there that really don't know how to sell because they're not trained properly. I call it the moment of bewilderment. A consumer comes in and is ready to spend a lot of money, and a sales associate is just not quite sure and is just trying to get through it. But you can feel that there's no commitment there to the knowledge that this sales associate should know. So basically, I'm there to help with their communication training. Here again, I'm speaking to you as an ex-FIT student. As Professor Alice mentioned before, I received the distinguished designer, I got my notes mixed up here, the Star Salute Award as an alumni from FIT who's made this great contribution to the industry. And as I said, I really don't feel that it was me that was doing it. It was my passion that drove me all these years. So what I would like to do is talk to you about what really directed my career. And hopefully this will help you. I'm going to quote from a very eloquent and inspirational leader, Martin Luther King. If a man is called to be a street sweeper, he should sweep streets even as Michelangelo painted, or Beethoven composed music, or Shakespeare wrote poetry. He should sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will pause to say, here lived a great street sweeper who did his job well. Well, I look at that quote and I relate it to me. I think I was a great industry spokesman, product of FIT, who really swept the streets well. Ironically, just for being a caring person, which is part of my presentation later, I'm being honored this October 20th by Morehouse College with their Top Design Award. And it's only because I met several students 2 years ago in Atlanta, and that's, by the way, where Martin Luther King graduated college. I met these young students who came in to visit me. It was shocking. I had my picture in Esquire magazine as one of the top dressed, and they had the magazine. The magazine is about 7 or 8 years old, and they wanted me to autograph it, and I was embarrassed. I was really embarrassed. Anyway, we became friends, and I gave them a lot of advice through emails and telephone conversations over the years, and all of a sudden, I'm getting this honor. So, again, it all starts with me being an FIT student. So, some of the things that helped me over the years become the person that I am. I always consider myself a quality person. Very important to me. And quality is never an accident. It is always the result of high intention, sincere effort, intelligent direction, skillful execution. It represents the wise choice of many alternatives. When we think about luxury today, we may think about, when we think about quality today, we may think about the luxury business. But consider yourself a luxury product, your own personal brand. Be a quality person. I think it's very, very important. I mentioned a word that is probably overused, but I don't know no other way to express it, and it's called passion. Passion is everything that I am and love to do. There are many things in life that will catch your eye, but only a few will catch your heart. Pursue those. Well, the fashion industry caught my heart years ago, and I never stopped being passionate about it. Integrity, the worth of honesty, character. Everyone will experience the consequences of his own acts. If his acts are right, he will have good consequences. If they're not, he'll suffer from it. You know, I feel that integrity is a very important part of my success, because in the 50 years that I've been in this business, I'm recognized as an honest person. I never lie. And by not lying, I never have to cover myself. I'm always out there. I'm being honest. And that personal integrity really got me to the level I've gotten to in this industry. And people know it. People know it. Don't ever think otherwise. Confidence. The value of confidence. You know, be positive, be confident. As is your confidence, so is your capacity. You know, some of these things I'm telling you today, I've used in sales meeting and for inspirational talks. And it's not just quotes I'm throwing out to you. This is really the foundation of my career. This is what I'm all about and how I conducted myself through my career. So challenge creates opportunity, and confidence, your level of confidence, is very, very, very important. Competitiveness, be competitive. Life should be a human undertaking. I know I basically was there, yet have found that in every move I prevent someone stepping where I step. You know, I'm a good person, but I'm competitive. I was a bit of a sports kind of person in my younger days, and I learned from that competitive spirit. And it does exist in business, obviously. Ralph Lauren is probably the most competitive person I've ever worked with. And again, it's his passion, his curiosity. And if you have that, that's part of being competitive. Don't let someone step where you're stepping. Effort. Effort. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary is that little extra. I was very fortunate, very young in my industry, when I was aspiring to develop my career. Someone came up to me and said, you know, it was a person I really admired and one of my mentors, and said to me, you know, I'm going to teach you something. If you follow this advice, you're going to do great. Never forgot it. He said, in this world, there's a lot of mediocrity. A lot of mediocrity. And if you're just slightly above the line, just slightly above the line of mediocrity, you're going to be incredibly successful. Slightly more above it, you're going to be outstanding. And I never forgot that, because when I looked around, I saw all the mediocrity. I saw the people that were coasting. I saw the people that were working just for the sake of working and getting a salary. They were the mediocrity that I didn't want to become. So if you can remember that, think about that. You put yourself in that position, I think you understand exactly what I'm saying. Execution. People can be divided into three groups. This is so true. Those who make things happen, me. Those who watch things happen, a little bit of mediocrity. And those who wondered what happened, way below mediocrity. So obviously, you got to make things happen. And your own personal spirit and passion will get you there. Trust me, I know from experience. Courage. Told you about my failure in my business. I never looked back and said, oh my God, I can't believe I did that, I resent. No, you can't. You got to be positive, go forward. It takes courage to push yourself to places that you never have been before, to test your limits, to break through barriers. And I did that. Fortunately, I had a reputation. That helped me. I was a known entity, so people would gamble, not even, I shouldn't use the word gamble, but people would say, come and join us, because I was an entity. And it takes courage to make moves, to understand what your next step is. Sometimes you fail, but you gain from it if you learn correctly. You know, another thing is the buoyancy of enthusiasm. I love enthusiastic people. I hate negative. I'm sorry. I never use the word hate, but I don't think negative people are productive. So always be thankful for what you have. No matter how bad things seem, they could always be worse. People who don't appreciate what they have could be miserable in paradise. You know, I think about the situation today with our economy. I had a three-way conversation this morning with my son, who's in the finance business, and my brokers, who've been handling my account. And I retired in April with a great deal of confidence, and I thought financial independence. At the time, it was the case. Today, I'm in a financial disarray because I don't understand what's going on, and I've lost like everybody else has lost. So I needed it to be cleared up. The clarity of the language that was going on is something I just didn't understand. So after speaking to these two brilliant people, I recognized that no one really knows what's going on. It's all going to come down to it being great again. There's no doubt about it. No one knows about the timing. But now is not the time to panic and be negative like they're all doing. It's going to come back. And if we had people with courage to say that, without all the fancy words, and just speaking directly to us like these two guys spoke to me today, and trust me, in proportion to what I've lost in cash is just devastating. But I can't walk with my head down. I've got to be grateful that I've got my health, and grateful that I live in a great country that is very resilient and will overcome this. So as bad as it is, I can't feed on the negativity because it will only hurt myself. Creativity. Open your mind. Open your mind. Great minds must be ready not only to take opportunities, but to make them. You know, when I was developing many different companies along the way, including the retail business, I would always look and see what the voids were out there. I said to myself, well, like today, unfortunately, every store looks alike. Every store looks alike. And the only way to overcome that problem is to service better than you could ever service. But you've got to be open to opportunities. Like, I think there's a tremendous void in sales associates properly selling. So my advice to Holt Renfrew is to be the #1 service store in Canada. In your career as creative people with visions and everything else that you're trained to become, or educated, to become, should always allow you to keep your mind open and always allow yourself to be creative. I used to buy fabric from companies that collected antique fabrics. And one day, by mistake, they showed me some old wallpaper. Can you imagine? Wallpaper from the 20s. And they immediately pushed it over to the side, and I said, wait, time out. Let me see that. Well, it's wallpaper. I said, I don't care what it is. Let me look at it. And I recognized that it was an amazing pattern for a suit. So I think in those days we paid $50 for a swatch. And with that swatch, or that wallpaper pattern, I went to Italy. I went to a mill, a fabric mill, and I had the fabric mill recreate that wallpaper swatch into a #1 selling suit that season. I walk around with my eyes open all the time. I learned something today that I didn't recognize before. I picked up this book someone recommended called Deluxe, How Luxury Lost Its Luster. It's an amazing reading, and it talks about the entire beginning of luxury. And to me, that's a very important subject, obviously. And they're also talking about the demise. So by reading this book, it challenges me to not accept the demise, how to overcome that. So, as I said, keep your mind open. Be creative at all times. Every place you look, everywhere you go, there's something to learn. Be a dreamer. As a kid in school, I used to get in trouble. I went to a Catholic school on 22nd Street and First Avenue, between First and Second. And in those days, they used to open up the windows with these long poles with the little hook on the end. And how many times did I get smacked over the head by a pole when I was just sitting in my chair dreaming? A man's dreams are an index to his greatness. And, I never stopped dreaming. I don't think that I could have accomplished what I did if I didn't dream. And you hear that all the time, but it's true. Respect. Find successful role models you can pattern yourself after. You reflect your industry, your actions, and how you behave. The role model is very important. I've had some great role models in my career. Stanley Marcus comes to mind. Some great role models. Some people that speak here. Ira Niemark, I don't know if you had the privilege of listening to him speak. And one thing Ira does is make sure you're all dressed up to the nines as if you were being interviewed for a job. I don't expect that, but I expect you to respect yourself, your industry, and remember that you are an extension of that industry. And what you reflect is what the perception becomes. Remember that. Another thing about respect, I've been very fortunate in my career to work with a lot of picture people, as RJ would call it. People from the movies, they call them pictures. And one year, Brioni did an amazing advertising campaign. Bless you. It really captured the essence of a very well-dressed, elegant man of luxury. And as a result of that ad campaign, a famous movie director by the name of Robert Altman, I don't know if you know him, he's done some amazing movies, was creating a movie called Dr. T and His Women. And his costume designer called me and introduced herself and said that Robert Altman wants Richard Gere in this movie to look just like Dr. T and His Women. So I knew of Richard Gere from the American Gigolo and how he and Armani put themselves on a map. And I was thinking to myself, there is no one more Armani than Richard Gere that I know. And how will he ever respond to Brioni? Long story short, he came up He allowed us 15 minutes to show him the wardrobe, which I put together on racks. And after almost 3 hours, he left. And during this process, he put on his shirt and knotted his tie. And he looked at me and he said, "How does it look?" And I said, "I'd just like to make one change. I want to put a dimple in the knot of the tie." And he said, "Sure, put it in." So I put the dimple in, and his assistant took a picture of it. I think 3 months later, I'm looking at the movie, first scene with him wearing a tie, bingo, dimple in a knot. And you know, that showed me respect for my trade, for what I know. I certainly couldn't be an actor because I don't know what he knows, but he respected what I did. And that's very important for you to have that respect from your peers, because it will always bode you goodwill, believe me. Humility. No matter what accomplishments you make, somebody helps you. I never refer to my staff as they work for me, we work together. We are a team. Without their help, I could never accomplish what I've accomplished. Ralph always says the same thing. Always says the same thing. It is just nice to be humble. To be pretentious and stupid is obvious. Humility goes a long way. Don't forget that. That's a wonderful quality to have. Goals. Set your goals. The purpose of goals is to focus our attention. The mind will not reach toward achievement until it has clear objectives. The magic begins when we set goals. It is then that the switch is turned on, the switch is turned on, and the current begins to flow, and the power to accomplish is a reality. So basically, these are the most important points that I have followed in my career. There's many other stories. There's many other words to use. I consider those to be the most important. But please always keep the passion. Keep the passion. If you don't have that, you're not going to be happy working. Working happy is, well, I've done it for 50 years. Now I'm going to continue for another 50 as a consultant. So I thank you very much for being here, listening to me, and now I'm ready for questions. The favorite part of, that's the only reason why I've been coming back for 15 years. The students floor me with amazing questions, so I'm ready for the challenge. Oh, okay. And hand it out or walk around? Okay. Any questions? Don't disappoint me. Yes?
When you're positioning a product or repositioning a product, what do you keep in mind?
Good question. You know, did everybody hear that question? When you're positioning a product, what do you keep in mind? I think the most important thing is a point of view. The company or the brand must have a point of view, and it should never waver. It should be consistent, because that's what makes a successful company. If you think about the companies that are incredibly successful, like Ralph Lauren, the Calvin Kleins, they've all had a point of view that they've maintained from everything, from A to Z, the communications, the advertising, the products. I think a point of view is very important. I'm being challenged by 3 Italian companies for a consulting job, and they all want to position themselves in America. And I said to them, I need to know about your company's objectives. What is it you want to do? How do you want to do it? And then I could take it from there. And certainly one of the things I will advise is focus and point of view. There's some amazing amount of stores going out of business. Can someone help me with one of the recent big stores, retail stores that went out of business? the name. Anyway, the store never had a point of view. It wanted to be this, it wanted to be that, it wanted to be that. It never focused, and the consumer knows that. The consumer recognizes that. So I think focusing your point of view is very important. Yes?
Would you say that a consistent point of view is also very important in building, well, building brand?
Of course. You think about some of the new great designers that are out there today. You know what really impresses me is Karl Lagerfeld and how he's captured the essence of Chanel. It's just amazing. Yet there's another great designer who's left us many years ago, Perry Ellis. No one can get it. No one can capture the essence of that. And Chanel had a great point of view, which lives on today. Perry Ellis did, but it's floundering because no one gets it. Yes?
So you're a person generally managing assistant. What's your opinion on companies that offer trend forecasting and report it against the
Oh, no. I'm very for it. I read anything I can. I may not always agree, but like I told you today, learning is an amazing experience. Just by reading that book. I wish the book was around 20 years ago when I was running Brioni. I learned so much from that. But then I realized I was a part of that. I was in the process when this was all going on. So I think I read Women's Wear today, and I cut out articles. And I read them. I put them away. I just wrote a 7-page report for Holt Renfrew, and I refer to all this stuff. What am I called, a rat pack? I refer to all this stuff in my files, only to help me formulate what I recognized a while ago, and then it becomes reality because there it is, I'm reading it. It was in my mind. So I read anything I can, and I'm always cutting out. I always used to love, as a kid, to cut things and paste them, you know, in scrapbooks, not on a computer. Yes? With Brooks Brothers? I applied for the job. Being a student here was helpful. It was recognized then, as it is today, as a great learning institution, and that helped me get the job at Brooks Brothers. While I was in school, yeah. Yes. Yes. That was so long ago that I can't find it anymore, and neither can the school. But they knew I was here because I got the Alumni Award. Yes.
You talked about, well, a lot of us are, last week we were told that it would be good to get some retail experience as a designer. And I was wondering if you would give us a little advice to become good salespeople? Doing events and secrets that you can share?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you know, over my career, remember I told you about my success is a result of other people helping me become successful. And one of the most important instruments of my success at Brioni especially were the salespeople on the floor. They had access to my telephone anytime they wanted to ask me a question. I learned from them. I grew my business through them, not Bert Tansky or Karen Katz, not the VP or the buyers, the salespeople. And a good salesperson, again, I hope I'm not overusing it, has the passion. Trust me, I know salespeople that make upwards of $250,000 a year selling apparel, men's apparel. Some women salespeople in the women's area make even more. And they are just motivated. Plus, they know the product. They want to learn as much as they can, so when they speak one-on-one with the consumer, there's an intelligent flow. And let me tell you something, luxury consumers especially know you can't fool them. You got to be on their level or maybe above if it's possible. So I think the passion and product knowledge is very, very important to being a good salesperson. And by the way, I do recommend retail experience because, as I said, I grew in this business not alone, and consumers, particularly consumers, taught me a lot. I always grew from the consumers that I was working with. I mean, my last trunk show, I used to do 2 trunk shows a year near the end of my career with Neiman Marcus and Brioni. The last one I did was outside of Chicago, what is it called? I lost the name. Anyway, the night before the trunk show, one of the top Brioni customers had a party at their house for me. They're going to be spending, the next day it turned out that I had a $600,000 day. They're spending money and they're treating me with a party. The next day other customers came with gifts, wine, they know I like wine. And I say to myself, they're spending $5,000, $6,000 for a suit, and they're giving me presents because they recognize my sincerity, they recognize my love, and they recognize that as I dressed a lot of famous people in my career, that I loved what I did, and it reflected. It just reflects. People get that. And that's what my success was, because I loved what I did. And I never pushed. You know how many times my first trunk show, Neiman Marcus Bell Harbor, maybe 15, am I all right for time? 15 years ago, I don't remember. I meet the crew for the first time, the team. And one of the top salesmen grabs me and says, listen, we have a problem in the fitting room. Man, husband and wife, in the fitting room. She's sitting on a stool that the gentlemen usually stand up on to have their pants measured. And they're both really, really mad. They were Bergdorf Goodman customers. They bought about $20,000 worth of made-to-measure products from, Brioni products from Bergdorf Goodman. Were shipped to Neiman's because they're sister stores, and it was being fitted there. Well, they were outraged because they felt the products didn't fit properly. So before they even give me a chance, they're attacking. They're attacking me. And she's sitting on a stool, and she'd look at that, and she's carrying on. So I said, excuse me. You can't judge from sitting on that stool. Will you please stand up? I'm telling her this. Well, all of a sudden, everybody disappears from the fitting room. And there's a buzz in the store that this guy, Barrato, this new guy that's visiting the store for the first time, is crazy. And then I told the gentleman, there's nothing wrong with the suit. That can't be corrected, a slight correction. And he's carrying on. I said, excuse me, what business are you in? I own an automobile dealership. Great. I said, I'm sure you know more about cars than I do. And if I need a professional, I would go to you. Now, I'm talking to you as a professional. You have to accept what I'm telling you. Because if you don't take that direct approach, it's not going to work. Well, long story short, they went on to spend another $22,000 with me after we resolved things in the fitting room, because I came across as a professional with authority. I wasn't mean. It was very nice. And I was willing, by the way, to accept the credit. But I had no choice anyway. It was going to happen, so I did my thing, and it worked. Be honest, as I said before. How many times did a customer come in who was ill-fitting and said, I want to buy 10 suits? And I said, no, you can only buy one. Because I want it to fit right, and I want you to be happy. And it happened to me, Ralph Lauren, Beverly Hills. The guy was the worst customer in the store. Unfortunately, the highest spending customer. And he comes to me and he takes this jacket off and he's carrying on. He doesn't even respect me. He doesn't even say hello. He's look, you can't do this, you can't. Yeah, it's going on and on and on and on. So I looked at him, and I said, you know what? You're right. I can't do anything that you just said. So I suggest you go back to this person and buy it. You seem to be happy. Well, he really got upset. I mean, not visibly, but you can sense it. So he said, all right, I'll buy it your way. And he wanted to buy 10 things. And I said, no, only one. I want to make sure you're happy first. So he bought a sport coat that was worth, I think, $10,000. So I said, I hope this works. Well, finally came in. He was satisfied. We let him buy more. So it's, knowing yourself when you sell, your product, and the relationship. Yes? Because I'm a snob. I can do anything, but my heart beats where my career has been, and it's always been luxury. But the principles apply to everything. And one of the things I have on my computer, there's a company called Bluebee out of California, Santa Barbara. They have an amazing site, and it's all directed to young people. And they bought Black Label when I was president of Black Label, so I know the people very well. And this site teaches me everything I want to know about the business that I don't know. So despite the fact that I'm in luxury, I want to know about everything. DNR recently listed the 10 top denim stores in America. I went to the #1 store just to understand what they were talking about. Am I in a jean business? No. Will I ever be? No. Was it important for me to learn what they were saying? Yes. Did I agree? I don't know. There's so many I got confused. But I was there. Yes.
I would do luxury and contemporary, but I feel like luxury is a harder market to tap into. Do you think you can go from contemporary to luxury successfully?
Yeah, as I said before, the principles all apply. It's just the product that you're working with. I just happen to like luxury. But contemporary, I mean, Black Label was really a contemporary label, and I grew it faster than the Purple Label product because I really related to it as a contemporary product. And it wasn't, I mean, it was expensive, but it wasn't a luxury product. So yeah, definitely you could make that switch.
But I mean, if you're, like, as from a brand perspective, if your price points start not low, but, contemporary price points, can you move up to higher price points without your consumer being like,
You mean with the same brand? I think it's easier to come down than it is to go up. That could be tough. I think you're more successful creating a division, what is it called, diffusion line, than it is to try to trade it up. It's difficult. Yes? Movies or movie actors? Well, movies, yeah. Well, Sabrina, the original, comes to mind because that was a very, very special, privileged world. And I just like the whole spirit of that movie, the guys, the way they dressed, the characters, everything. I guess any Fred Astaire movie. And there's so many. That man was just a natural. In fact, a gentleman is writing a book. It's going to be released in April about Fred Astaire, and I'm quoted, almost a whole page of my quotes are in that book. Because I just thought he was fabulous. Fabulous. And there's another gentleman that I love by the name of Gary Cooper. In fact, believe it or not, there's a a movie with Shirley MacLaine, of all people. And it's an old movie, and he plays the villain in this movie, but it's like a fashion show. He's in all these different outfits. And I never knew the little Shirley MacLaine was in it before she became popular. So, you know, if you search, you hear from your friends, they talk to you about different things, and if you're curious, you go and you find them, and that's what happened with this Gary Cooper movie. I said, I've got to see it, so I bought it. Never stop learning.
What is your feeling about the movie industry, what they make as films today compared to what's a bad question?
Yeah, no, it's. I'm very encouraged by the African American community. The gentlemen in that community are really, really showing me their passion for dressing, from the rapsters all the way through. And I think that what I hope to do with this book, if I could ever get it written, is to become a spokesman for the industry, which we really don't have a credible spokesman. We have clowns representing the menswear industry on TV, and they're deliberately made fun of. We need to have a serious spokesman who can bring back the integrity of dressing like gentlemen, elegantly. And it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Young men today, I'm so, you have no idea how impressed I am. I'm really impressed. They wear their jackets like a pair of jeans, one size small, but you know what? They're wearing suits, and I don't care. And you know, I was single for 20 years, and you know, obviously I met a lot of women. And let me tell you something, whenever I took a woman out to dinner or whatever, she always loved a guy that was dressed elegantly, not like a slob. And I used to tell guys that, you know, you got look at them. No, I dress just like you on a weekend. But there's a time and a place when you role play, you become, it's like the movies. I dress for every occasion. And if I had a great opportunity to meet a great lady, I'm going to dress to the nines. I'm not going to do my casual thing. No offense by that, by the way. Some people don't recognize me when I dress on the weekends. You have no idea. Yes. Well, I always loved women, no doubt about it. So I'm not strictly a menswear guy. Are you talking about business? Oh, I'm sorry. I've dabbled in women's. If I were ever to do women's wear, I would do it like Ralph Lauren. Very, very, very classic. I love Audrey Hepburn. To me, she's the ultimate for the way a woman should dress so elegantly, without Audrey Hepburn, without effort, just natural. I like natural women. Cavalli kind of just. Sure.
Cavalli is a shock to me because I lived in Rome at the period when Rome was the fashion center of the 60s. And Cavalli, no Italian chic woman would shop at
No.
Cavalli. They thought it was a nightmare.
The sexiest thing, yeah, the sexiest thing to me is an Audrey Hepburn who's understated, yet has the style. Yes. You know, it's a good question. And, you know, it's hard for me to answer specifically, but if I were in your position today, I'd hope that I would have a good grasp of who I am and what I want to do, and be patient. I find a lot of young people today, want to reach the top their first year working. And, you got to pay your dues, and you've just got to be patient and find the right situation for you where you can grow, where you have an opportunity to be educated on the job. There's nothing like it, but you got to pick that kind of environment that you think would work for you. I mean, if you get an opportunity to get on a Macy's training program, for example, for their retail stores or the Bloomingdale, whatever it may be, or if you want to get involved in the manufacturing end, if you have design aspirations, you got to work with a company that can teach you, because you're ready to go from this level you're at now to your next level. And part of the process is to be with the right company where you can learn. And fortunately, as I said before, I've had some great situations in my career. And at one point, I knew when it was time to leave and get ready for the next step. Does that answer the question? Yes. Well, if I could spend my next 10 years with you all, I think it would be an amazing experience for me, because you're the future. You are the ones that are going to lead the future. There's no doubt about it. I will always be young at heart, but I did my 50 years. Now I look to you all to lead. And it just becomes your individual thing. It's a great question, and I'm not trying to double talk, but you have to create your own opportunity and understand what's out there that gives you that opportunity. Like, remember I said void before? If there's a void out there, you got to recognize it and attack it and create something that will make you and your product or whatever different. Even if you're going to work in a retail store. There's always, we always need to grow and learn, and I know if I sat with you all for the next 10 years, it would be a great learning experience. You just never stop, and you all are in control. You got the Ralph Laurens of the world, the Armanis, they're old. They're old. We need new blood, and you're the future. Ralph would never admit it, but he's going to be 69 or 70. I'm 67. I still want to be in this business because I have a lot to offer, like I'm doing today. But it's your time. It's your time. My window is a lot smaller. Yes.
Do you think even design students should be more exposed to business knowledge and business experience? You started as a educator, not as a
Yeah. Should a designer, be more administratively inclined? Is that correct? More. Yeah. I was sitting before with a young man. He's a son of a friend of mine, who's a teacher, a professor of literature, was it? English, and he loves the fashion business. So he was asking me for advice, and he's currently working for a fashion company, and he loves the administrative aspect of what he does. That's what he loves, being an administrator. And he alluded to the guy that he works for, who's sort of like a designer. Designers tend to be a little flaky because they're in another world. And sometimes they don't have the complete balance. Ralph Lauren does. Giorgio Armani does. Calvin Klein, not so much. But he had a very strong partner. So it's very hard to find the balance of being a great designer and a great administrator. Designer's got a good business head because obviously it's got a vision, and he takes that company to a level that's unique. But he needs strong administrative support, because that's not usually a designer's strength, and you don't want it to be. You want a designer to be creative, but you have to have a good support team, a very good support team. Yeah. Yeah. Any more questions? Well, yes.
I am well. Okay, so there's a test. No great, but what do you think the top 3 luxury brands and like the top 3 contemporary price point brands, or the top 3 whatever you choose brands?
Well, for luxury, I think you've got to look at Louis Vuitton as up there, or Hermes, another one, Chanel, Gucci. I'm sorry? Ferragamo. It's hard to limit it to 3, but I would say those are the top right now. Certainly, LVMH he's got a stable of amazing luxury products. Contemporary, I don't know that much in women's wear, but I've been fortunate to be involved with a young lady who has a company called Imposter. And this company advocates, along with a lot of other agencies, fake fur rather than real fur. And I've been helping her position herself with some contemporary companies who are, like for example, Ralph Lauren is not using real fur. So this company, Imposter, could be a great tool for him, because it's fur but it's fake. It's an amazing product. But anyway, if I could just say something to that question, Ralph Lauren has created this world, and I use Ralph as an example. He's got his luxury brand called Purple Label, both men's and women's. He's got his contemporary brand called Black Label, both men's and women's. And then he's got his Blue Label, which is almost medium priced. Each brand represents a certain lifestyle directed to his customer. And then of course he's got Rugby, which is the Abercrombie of his world. So there's many, I can give you many examples, but when you think about this question, try to merchandise these companies in your own mind and use that example of Ralph Lauren and compare him to other existing companies. And again, the analogy would be a Bobby Jones versus his Blue Label. And there's a lot of analogies like that in women's wear. I'm not that familiar with women's wear, but oh, Theory. Theory, sure. That's the,
And he wanted to he found a niche, he said.
yeah,
His family was Mass, Puritan, etc.
yeah.
And he didn't want to do just the same thing again. That's what he told me.
Theory, yeah. That's a great contemporary brand. But there's a lot out there. And look at what they represent. I'm seeing an amazing amount of T-shirts today. When I go to Bergdorf's, I always go to the 3rd floor. When I go to Saks, I always go to the 7th floor. I know the 2nd floor, I know the 1st floor, men's, with my eyes closed. But 3rd and 7th at Saks, more challenging for me. But I get it, and I'm doing the same thing with Holtz, because they had the same kind of mix. I have to know these things. It's my job. But I'm not as good in contemporary. But I'll get there. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your questions.
I told you he was the best, right? Yes. Anyway, this was the most valuable, very valuable, because you are the future. And that's why I'm very grateful when someone like Mr. Barrato comes all the time to give to you, because I know what his gift is to you. Because I was there, as he said, I too was one of you young people once. Young at heart, yes. Thank you, yes. Oh, dear. Can you open that thing?
Yeah.
It was wonderful, yes. But I'm sorry, they cut down the number, I'll tell you. But there are questions, you see how attentive.
Yeah, very
It's
good.
better to have, there's
Exactly.
45 good ones. They're very good. Okay. They're going to ask you questions.
Hi, how are you?
How are you?
Say again?
Sada Musa.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you so much for speaking.
Oh, my pleasure.
That was really refreshing, very inspiring. to
Good.
hear That because especially in the fashion industry, we don't really talk much about character, and I feel like you just really gave that to us, that our character and the way we carry ourselves is one of the most important things.
Right.
To be happy and how we treat people. Like I was talking to Rebecca the other day, and she was like, I was telling her about finding a really down to earth company. She's like, it's gonna be very hard for you to find a company that's down to earth where the people are just genuine people in the fashion industry.
Yeah, exactly.
So for you to say that is, we have to be that ourselves for other people, and in our environment, and exude that to people. It's
Sure.
not just about hoping that other people will do that for us. We have to
Exactly,
be that for other people.
exactly.
So I
Yeah.
really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And I also wanted to ask you, I volunteer for a nonprofit organization
Mm-hmm.
called Sakina, and you were like, the way you were speaking is like exactly your mission statement. It's amazing. Like,
Oh,
yeah,
really?
Just like,
What's the organization?
Sakina.
And what
It's
is
a
its purpose?
nonprofit organization, basically to encourage Muslims and non-Muslims, but really to encourage professionalism within our field to serve our communities, to serve humanity,
Oh, great.
regardless of faith. So it's basically being proficient in what God has blessed you with.
Oh, great.
So that you're able to serve humanity.
Wonderful.
And that will unite us.
That's
So
wonderful.
That's really.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if you would be interested in speaking.
Sure.
at our-
Let me give you my card.
we work with like many different, like Star Jones. We
Right.
have an excerpt in there, and so we thank you so much.
That's my card.
I'll talk
It's
to
so
the
funny,
president
speaking about
you.
Muslim countries, I'm working with people from Qatar, Qatar. I don't know how it's Qatar, right? And you know what they told me after my first meeting? They said, "We love your transparency." And it's not that. I mean, that's me, and I was surprised that they said that. But it worked out pretty good.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Good luck to you. Hi.
I'm Nabitha. I'm
Nice
good.
to meet you.
Thank you so much for giving us time.
Oh, my pleasure.
Your speech was just wonderful.
Thank you.
You learned so much.
Not bad for cramming, huh?
At Starbucks, right in the middle of the grid. And I thought that was really cool, but I was wondering, is there a section that you do that is the most fun, that people in the office get really excited about? Because it seems to me that if I were going to come up with that idea, that seems like a really fun process to go through. Is there a section that galvanizes the staff most of all during the week, or is it change?
My guess is the approval matrix would be it. I mean, particularly for the for the younger members of the staff, they all there's a call on Monday out to everyone for matrix ideas, and that thing is mostly most of the content comes from people who are under 25. It's, little things, and it's the chance for everyone to sort of play. So that's fun. I was completely against the idea, and well, I was so fixated, as Kurt, by the way, also was. He was just, well, why is this highbrow? Why is this lowbrow? We just got very kind of literal about the whole thing, and then but people were loving it, and then after a while, I said, oh, forget it, fine, and now I get it.
There's at least one magazine in town that gets the whole cause out of illustrating. So I was wondering, the turnover and topicality, what is less of an option?
What's the question, please?
About the viability of illustrated solutions for the covers.
Basically illustrations and how they reflect with the topicality of the subject matter on the covers.
It's been my feeling that illustrations are generally slower and therefore don't work as well on covers, but I think maybe I'm wrong. I think if you can get illustrations that don't feel too worked over, and that just have that sort of instant thing, I think we might end up doing more of that. One thing we've had just an incredible amount of fun with have been computer altered, using photographs as in effect illustrations. I mean, one of my favorite covers that we did in the last 4 years was we did a fake Us Weekly cover of Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie before we read in the Keith Kelly's column in the New York Post that that picture of the baby, their first baby, the first baby that she gave birth to, would nab $5 million, and that seemed incredible to us. So we decided to scoop the actual event with a faked event, which was mostly actually a real picture that was the work of a British artist named something Jackson, right? Yeah. But in the end, she didn't quite get the Angelina face just right. So we, at the last minute, saved the cover because it was sort of not working because it didn't look like them, with just slapping her face on, and it was, it was great. And then we recently did a cover of McCain and Obama on the beach for a summer issue. Another one of these covers that is impossible to do. Doing a fist bump. This was right after the Michelle and Barack fist bump. And that was, also obviously, it was a cartoon cover, but using photography. So I'd love to do more and more and more of that. But you have to have the idea kind of with enough time, which we seldom do.
Yeah.
This question is mostly for Walter and Milton. Is it true that you were saying that a lot of the headlines were in the art department? It seems to me that New York Magazine was one of the first magazines to run tons of headlines a lot, and that kind of took magazine headline writing by storm over the last, however many years, 40 years, and now on the wane. But did it come out of New York Magazine?
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing that question.
Did you guys invent?
It's about cover lines. I don't think we ever had as many cover lines as Cosmopolitan or something like that. When Milton and I did that logo, or at least decided that it had a Scotch rule over it, there was room for cover line over it. We ended up stacking 3 lines over that. I don't think, and then it was those 3 lines plus 1 cover line, so that's only 4 cover lines, basically.
What I was saying was puns.
Puns. Oh, puns. I'm sorry.
Puns as headlines.
Seems like New York Magazine of that era.
Our staff in 1968 had 2 sources of people. One source was from Esquire and the other was from the Herald Tribune. I think Milton was the only person there who had never worked on a magazine staff. He's always worked for himself. But everybody came either from an Esquire kind of culture or a Herald Tribune kind of culture. And the Esquire of 64 to 68 was really well known for its headlines. And a lot of those were puns. That's all I can say, because given Felker's proclivity for writing 20-word headlines that Milton and I tried to condense into 3, it was puns were easier.
I think there was one other thing, which was, and I think my sense is it's true of New York today as well, is that fundamentally the magazine was created for its authors, which is to say the writers and the editors were writing for themselves or people like them. There was not this dreadful sense that you have in very many editorial offices, that there is a they out there and we're going to do a piece for them, which is a kind of detached view of the activity where the audience, this gray, undefined mass, has to be served on the level they are capable of understanding. So, for us, the thing was to do something that we would be amused by, because we had the strong conviction that the magazine was for us and that the jokes were for us. And so, rather than try to accommodate a proposition or a headline to an audience that was not very clear to us, we basically wrote a line that was funny to us. And I think that is a difference in kind of the basic makeup of magazines. Some magazines are really written very much within the interest and the passion of the people who make it, and other magazines are manufactured as products, largely as advertising vehicles, written for an audience that will respond to what you think they're interested in. So the kind of joke or pun or that attitude towards the subject was really a kind of expression of the fact that we think this is funny, and so will you.
As far as the sponsor, eating cover yesterday, do you have any thoughts about that, and is that something that we see in New York?
He was talking about the electronic cover that Esquire just did, just in case you...
I'm sorry.
It's a new electronic cover. They're using some sort of electronic... I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it. My answer is I haven't seen it yet either. I mean, it's, it's a sort of inspired novelty, and it sounded really cool.
Yeah, but New York Magazine used to have those Absolute ads where you got gloves and stuff inside, and they had, or you'd open it up and it would play Christmas songs. Isn't it just like the next generation?
Yeah, it seems that way. Made us a little crazy because we have a 40th anniversary issue. Obviously that will be coming out a week after Esquire's, and we don't have an electronic cover. Our cover just sits there.
Any other questions? We have time for maybe one more question. Over here on the left.
You talked a little bit about extending to web and being a news site, and mostly talked about how when you became a news site in New York, didn't have some sort of availability of images. Do you find that now that a lot of us are sort of sitting in front of computers, absorbing images all the time, absorbing information all the time, that that's changed the way magazines are designed? And does it mean that the magazines have to be faster paced, or does it mean that they have to be more considerate? And do you like that that's the way magazine design? If it is, then it's something.
It's for you, Chris.
Who wants to take that one?
I didn't understand the question.
Are you basically saying web design affecting magazine design? Okay.
Has web design changed magazine design?
Or are you saying that the consumer of seeing websites is affecting the way they respond to magazine design?
Well, do you think about how are they going to respond to these images as how they're going to respond to whether they see all day when they're sitting in the computer?
So you're talking about photography on the web versus photography in a magazine.
Yeah, I think they're two completely different mediums, and I think, as Adam said, we create specific stuff for the medium of the printed magazine and take advantage of that with the scale and the size and the pacing that's going to happen, and then, in the transfer of that information, it takes on a whole different life on the web. For a lot of the sections, they do use the same imagery, the illustrations, the photography, the slideshows, the conceptual work that's been done, and they just repurpose it in ways, and it just has a different relationship on the web, and it's more immediate. So I think that in terms of our magazine, they feed back and forth to each other. For me personally, I don't approach the magazine design any differently with the basis on the web. If anyone else?
Although one of the things that just happened recently is that one of the ways that on Mondays for like a minute and a half, they actually use our cover on the web. The cover story cycles through so many different they have their own cover stories and all that stuff. And when the web designers actually took our cover pictures, they sort of changed them in little ways to make it work for the web, and they make them a square, and as soon as they alter them in sort of webby kind of ways, and that actually, we kind of liked the way that was looking, and so and so this was actually a weird future past thing, because we have started to think to try to create a cover in that window, in that same kind of window that the web has, which made it gave it the effect of looking like the actually original design that you guys created. So that you may notice here, and we have done about 6 or 7 times in the last 3 months. We went back to that old box. I don't know what you ever call that thing. The box where you only use 2/3 of the cover. And that came, weirdly, not from the old thing as much as it did from the little TV screen that the web was using. But that didn't have to do with the sort of speed of imagery. It just was like, wow, this looks good, squat and short and weird.
All right. Well, I think we should all give these guys a big round. Thank you all very much for coming out.
Thank you guys for coming, and we will see you on September 22nd for the first Speakeasy event with Rem Duplessis. Thank you guys.